Migraware project is to deliver an integrative assessment framework for the processes, drivers and factors of rural-urban cross-border migration in West Africa, and also to detect the typical pathways and histories of migration that could include moving from poor hinterlands to urban conglomerations and other places, so that governance instrument can be tailored for local, national and interregional level production and development. Well, we have joining us since Wednesday now, joining us once again today from our Abuja studio, Professor Apollonia Ogimame, Director of WASCAL Climate Change and Human Habitat at the Federal University of Technology, Minna, Niger State. She's joining us once again from our Abuja studio. But also joining her today for that conversation is the scientific coordinator of Migraware. He is in Ghana, is representing the overall coordinator of the project, who is in Germany. He is Justice Income. He joins us from Cape Town in Ghana. Or Cape Coast in Ghana, I beg your pardon. Good to have you, Mr. Income and Prof, once again. First of all, let's start with you, Prof, since we are very familiar with you. We started with you on Wednesday. Help us to understand, that's Prof now in Abuja, help us to understand the connection between WASCAL, you talked to us about WASCAL on Wednesday, and Migraware. What's the common ground here?
Thank you very much for that question, Ini. WASCAL, in making itself relevant in the sub-region, decided to work with stakeholders in the sub-region to identify research gaps in climate change and various thematic foci. And to do that, it worked with the WASCAL centers in the 11 West African countries. WASCAL centers organized national stakeholders workshop with stakeholders within their countries. For instance, in Nigeria, the two WASCAL programs, Federal University of Technology, Minna, and the Federal University of Technology, Akure, joined forces and organized about 5 years ago a national stakeholders workshop that identified gaps in research related to climate change in Nigeria. The same thing occurred in the other 10 West African countries. So, at regional level, WASCAL called a meeting of all these stakeholders and synthesized the results of the gaps identified into what we call a West African research plan. In 2017, this West African research plan was advertised. Components in it were advertised so that institutions in Germany and West Africa can collaborate to conduct research. And that was how Migraware was born, because a consortium of institutions comprising institutions in Germany, 2 universities and others, University of Julius Maximilian University in Würzburg, and then Martin Luther University in Halle, led others to work with West African partners. In Ghana, for instance, University of Cape Coast led them. In Burkina Faso, University of Nazibon led the way, while in Nigeria, Federal University of Technology, Minna, is working with Geography Department of the same university in Migraware. So that is the relationship between WASCAL and Migraware. WASCAL is being sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, and the same ministry is sponsoring or funding the research being conducted under West African research plan. So the funding for the research comes to all the partners through WASCAL. Okay. So that's the relationship between WASCAL and Migraware.
All right, Mr. Income. So we know that when it comes to the issue of migration across West Africa, it's not a new topic. And yet we have this approach, the Migraware approach. What makes this approach different? What's outstanding about it?
Again, thanks for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. And as I said, I think Professor Aplone already did mention a lot about the origination of Migro and its relationship with Wascal. So indeed, your question is right. Here too, we've had opportunities where we consider migration really just by mere terms of the push and pull factors, right? People wanting to move from one location to the other, either to secure socioeconomic benefits or educational, other related factors. But I think that the new thing that we are bringing on Migraware is to look at the environmental twist of the determining factors and also the drivers that forces people to migrate from one area to the other.
Can I see?
And then also try to sort of like introduce new technologies through the use of remote sensing and GIS, as well as also through the use of this new modern way of connecting with people through mobile telecommunication, or even mobile apps like Twitter and Facebook and other stuff, as a main source of having to connect and also inform people about the possibilities of moving from one location to the other. And then, most interestingly, the twist of having a new concept we call citizen science approach, in having to understand how that communal relationship and interrelationship inform people or causes people to move from one area to the other. And I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, we've had several, migration projects that either focus on modeling climate change or modeling other factors, but not really hardcore environmental drivers that either forces people to move, that most government and most scientific communities haven't even really thought that much about. So I think that's the new twist of what we are doing currently with Migraware.
And Prof, I understand that there's an innovation in training and education of future climate change scientists in West Africa, and this is the 10th year of its existence. Can you tell us a bit more about this education and training that you're doing?
Well, Wascal, you very articulately presented yesterday. It focuses on using state-of-the-art technologies to train qualified West African youths selected from different countries, the 11 countries involved in Wascal. Now, Migraware is going to lead to another area of interest in the program in Mina, Imperial University of Technology, Mina, because this time around, the research output from Migraware will be embedded in the curriculum of training, so that the area of climate change impact on migration is brought to the fore. They will be trained as future decision makers in the knowledge and skills that we have practiced through the research we are going to conduct in Migraware. And in addition to that, capacity of some young West Africans within the project are also being developed. There are PhD students attached to Migraware, and they are being trained in the processes that the research would undertake, so that in future they can work with other research scientists to develop further the Migraware software. I forgot to mention here that Migraware itself is an acronym derived from the title of the research, but it is actually a library-based software that can be developed continuously until we achieve the aim of being able to utilize that software not only to map, but to monitor as well as predict future migration trends for governments in West Africa. Thank you.
Yeah, so since we're talking of West Africa, Mr. Income, apart from Nigeria and what the prof has explained, what's going on in the Federal University in Mina there, what's going on in Ghana about, you know, also embedding the output of this research into curriculum and getting, you know, the younger people to get into it at an early stage, you know, so that by the time they become adults and used to the community, they can, you know, spread the message and act it out also.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think Professor Apollonia did, you know, hit the nail right on the head. We have a similar construction also for the University of Cape Coast. We do have students who are currently also going through training, like she mentioned, in making them more competent in having to understand the sort of library that Migraware, open source library that Migraware is bringing up, and then also continuously improve on the systems and the processes that are within that library. So we have, I think we have 3 PhD students, and then aside that, we also do have professors and other research assistants from within that university who are equally contributing to that process. So it's more like improving the competence across the scale of, you know, key West African countries who happen to be either the harbor of migrants or also sometimes the origin of migrants as well. So yeah, it's cut across both countries, and the similar fashion is also happening in Burkina Faso, you know, University of Naziboni, where we have other scientists and PhD students being trained on the same pedigree. So yeah.
And what do the countries, you know, that host these universities in Nigeria, in Burkina Faso, as you've mentioned, and in Ghana, what do they stand to gain from the output of this, outcome of this project? What difference will it make, really?
So really, that's a good question. I think mostly it's a sort of thing that we have to always take seriously as a project. You know, I think the key thing here is having to provide some inputs for policy consideration. As it is, every country, you know, has a national migration policy. What we normally do miss in this migration policy is a focus or priority areas where targeted responses or targeted support need or ought to go to. So what we seek to do on Migraware is, after we are done with all the research, all the processes, having to understand what key drivers and factors really are there, the hotspots of these key drivers and factors, as Professor Apollonia mentioned, these are going to be mapped, and after we map these, we put them in a document that will then be provided to the different ministries in charge of migration as a substantive contribution on areas that needs prioritization. Are these areas with, you know, low agricultural productivity? That could be a key priority. Are these areas with low educational infrastructure? That could be a key priority. Are these areas that have massive you know, outflows of competent or productive young Africans or young Ghanaians or Nigerians or Burkinabés? Then these could be key targeted priorities that need consideration in the holistic national migration policy framework. So that's the direction that we are going with the general outcome of the project.
And hopefully the government of those countries will adopt it, you know, and make it part of their policy. Yeah. Well, Prof, starting a thing is one thing, but the truth is, if we really want to make it impactful, there has to be a way to sustain it. So what's the plan to sustain, you know, this critical role of WASCA in West Africa, maybe in the next 10 years, 20 years, you know, to get the optimum impact that you seek to achieve with the project?
Okay. First, the results of Migraware will be tested in the Federal University of Technology, Mina, the Center of the WASCAL Center, the Climate Change and Human Habitat. Because when you talk about human habitat, it involves movement of people from one location to the other, migration. So we'll test it there, then export it with the cooperation of other WASCAL programs across West Africa. We'll export it to them. In other words, they have the opportunity to also embed it in their curriculum, in their various universities. Outside that, there will be participation in conferences that are related to climate change, where the results will be, presented. And in addition to that, there is a whole lot of stakeholder engagement during the procedure, during the research. So we will still engage these stakeholders, whether they are in commercial area, whether in government, in research institutes. We'll still engage them when the results come out, so that gradually the research results will be sustained. Of course, there is the issue of funding it, but I believe that by the time the outcome are seen to be very useful to the various countries, we will not have to look for how to fund this stakeholder engagement. But we intend to fully test it, not only in Nigeria, across West Africa, and we intend to engage local stakeholders in the academia, so on and so forth. And that's how we intend to sustain the program.
All right.
But of course, visibility will be created in the process.
All right, Professor Apollonia Ohimame, Director of WASCA, Climate Change and Human Habitat at the Federal University of Technology, Mina, Niger State, and also Mr. Justice Income, Scientific Coordinator of Migraware, joining us there from Cape Coast, Ghana. Thank you so much for your thoughts. And we do wish you the best. We're waiting for, embedding that into the curriculum so that we will feel the lasting impact, in our different countries. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I must say, Ini,
yes, please.
With this program, we have actually launched Migraware in Nigeria.
Okay.
So from now onwards,
we look forward to Migraware projects and Migraware impact.